Hello there, it's Sandeep, and in this video we're going to begin a series on fighting the London system, which is one of the most popular openings outside of the elite level. And so if you're a low rated player like me, I'm only 1800, 1900 Lichess Rapid, then this is an opening that you're going to face over and over again. And so you could do some online course where you learn 20 moves of theory, but the reality is you're never going to see that because your opponent is going to do some random stuff and you're going to have to deal with it. And that's one of the hardest things in chess, is when your opponent is not making the best moves or the most accurate moves, you have to try and figure out how to put that under pressure. So the purpose of these videos in this series is to equip you with obviously top engine moves, lines that are completely sound, but also give you high level ideas and address the common moves, the common deviations early on, rather than sinking deeper and deeper into a specific line. So let's begin. d4, d5. Bishop f4, the London system. And I appreciate there are different ways of dealing with it. Some people like to play knight f6, but I just like to play d5 because that puts a pawn in the center, a principal thing to do. And also if my opponent plays the Queen's Gambit, then I like to accept. Queen's Gambit accepted is one of my favorite openings. So after bishop f4, you can see here in the Lichess database that there are almost 10 million games that have reached this position. And if you download Stockfish and let it calculate in this position on your computer, it loves the move c5. And that's what I recommend playing. And c5 fights for the center. And what's interesting about it is that there are less than 700,000 games that have the move c5. So approximately 7%. So there's a good chance your opponent won't even know what to do with c5. And it's not really a gambit, because after d takes c5, white cannot hold on to the material advantage, as you will see. Before we get into that, just note that if your opponent plays knight f3, then just go with knight f6, and you can see c4 takes us into Queen's Gambit territory. Bishop f4 goes into similar London system stuff. And even in this position, if you let Stockfish calculate, it still likes the move c5. So you want to look for that c5 move. So let's go back. After bishop f4, c5, the purpose of this video is to specifically look at d takes c5, which is the fourth most popular response in the database. In subsequent videos, we'll look at other moves like e3, c3, knight f3. But let's look at d takes c5. And after d takes c5, here e6 is a good move. And white cannot hold on to this pawn advantage. If white plays the move b4, which you can see here in the Lichess database is the second most popular move. So if you play b4, you've lost. So you might want to pause the video and work out the winning tactic. Well done if you did. The winning move is queen f6. That hits the bishop, that hits the rook, and you can't save them both. And so the engine recommends something like bishop takes knight, queen takes rook, bishop retreats, queen takes a2, and black has exchanged a knight for rook and pawn. Black is completely winning. So instead of b4, more sensible is something like e3. e3 is quite passive and it's not the best move. And herein lies one of the challenges of playing things like the London system, is that people who play it get into the habit of putting their pieces on the same square regardless of what their opponent is doing. And that is not a good idea. So they want to play knight f3, e3, bishop d3, knight d2, but that's not the best setup here. So the best move in this position is actually e4. And if I was to go into the Lichess database here and filter out some of the lower rated players, and let's say we leave 2200s and 2500s, you can see they're playing e4, right? But the rest of us don't. Let's put these people back in. And they play e3. Okay, so e3 is not losing, but it's a bit passive. Black can now easily develop. Bishop takes c5, material is equal. And let's turn off the engine. And so now we have knight f3. And here it seems as though knight f6 is a move, knight c6 is a move. I like to delay knight c6 and play knight f6 first. And the reason I do this is because A, we can castle if we want to. The c file is semi-open. We're going to put a rook on c8, and so there's that benefit. But the point of knight f6 is to wait and see what white wants to do with this light squared bishop. and try and entice the error bishop b5 check, which you can see in the database is the 4th most popular continuation. After bishop b5 check, bishop d7 takes. White has given up its good bishop for black's bad bishop. You see here in this position, black's light square bishop is stuck behind a pawn chain, whereas this bishop on b5 really belongs on d3, where it can target the h7 pawn one day in an attack. And so that is the usefulness of not putting your knight on c6 immediately. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know in the comments below. So now after knight f6, you can see here in the Lichess database, the most popular continuation is c3. And this is again passive. The best engine move is c4, immediately fighting for the center and putting black under pressure, but people play c3. And in this position, we can just go ahead and castle, and you can see here bishop d3. And now we can play knight c6. White has made its intentions around this light square bishop clear. And now, let's say we have knight b to d2. We're going to play the move rook e8. And the point here is that, or the idea here is that black wants to get the move e5 in. And if black does that, then black is at least going to have a very comfortable position, slightly winning, or white is going to throw away some material, as you'll see. So let's say white is not paying attention, and white just goes ahead and castles. Now white is lost. So if you study enough of your tactics puzzles, you'll know that after e5, the bishop moves, e4, these pieces are forked. White is going to have to chuck a piece. White is losing. So black has to do something about this e5 threat. And you can see here in the Lichess database, people play a move like knight e5. But even then, black has a slight advantage because after bishop d6, we play with tempo. So this knight is double attack, defended once. Let's say you defend it again, queen c7. Now it's triple attacked. You can't defend it a third time. So you have to play knight takes c6, b takes c6. And what are you going to do now? Let's say bishop takes d6, queen takes d6. Then black is almost certainly going to get the e5 move in, and e4 remains a threat. And the rook will come to b8. This bishop is going to get liberated after e5, so it could go this way, it could go this way, and black is going to have a comfortable game. If you switch on the engine, I believe black is -1 or something like that. And so that is the ideas against d takes c5. So if we go back and just summarize, after c5, d takes c5, we play e6. We don't worry about the fact that the light square bishop is hemmed in, because we're going to try and play the move e5. And in this position, we're trying to entice the error b4, in which case we can play the move queen f6 and win the game. But if not, after e3, bishop takes c5, knight f3, knight f6. Let's see whether white wants to exchange bishops, in which case we're going to have a comfortable game. And if not, let's say you have c3, castles, bishop d3, rook e8, then the idea, knight c6, and knight b to d2, and rook e8, then the idea here after completing all this development is to play the move e5. And white has to try and stop that. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video, and in subsequent videos we will look at other lines. Thank you very much for your time.